So how to have a good group discussion. First we talked about listening skills. So now let's cover the other topic, the other side of your role, which is speaking. So how to be a good speaker. So again, going back to how to study in college, Polk and Owens use the acronym AIM to summarize the skills of a good speaker. A stands for accurate, I stands for interactive, and M stands for memorable. So let me explain these three words to you. First, accurate. Again, we have 2 videos for you to watch. In these 2 videos, we're discussing the topic of education. So try to pay attention to the differences. And again, please be reminded that the worksheet has on page 3 the part about being a good speaker. So hopefully you have read the guiding questions and know what to pay attention to.
Hey, so.
Oh, hi Matt. How are you?
Alright.
So, what have you been up to?
Reading.
Reading? I should have known that, right? So, what have you been reading?
A book.
What's the title?
Leonardo. How to. Something Leonardo.
Something Leonardo. So, can you explain to me what it's about?
It's about, being creative and stuff.
So, it's about being creative. You mean how you can be creative?
Yeah, and observing and stuff.
Observing. So, how is observing connected to creativity?
Well, you know how Leonardo da Vinci was, he was really, great and did all kinds of things and had all kinds of ideas.
True, I did see some of his paintings. So, why are you reading this book?
I don't know. Just got it. Figured read it.
Okay. Alright. Thank you.
No problem. Hey, so.
Oh, hi Matt.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Happy to see you. So, what have you been up to?
Well, I've been reading this really cool book, How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci.
Ooh, wow. So tell me more. What is it about?
Well, basically it's about the fact that even though Leonardo da Vinci was a genius, and maybe we can't all be as amazing as Leonardo da Vinci, we can tap into the methods he used for observation, and his, we can learn from his insatiable curiosity about all kinds of things. So when, he would watch things, he would look at a flower, and he would draw it not from one perspective, but from 3 different ones, so that he really understood. And so it's about how to be more curious about the way things work or the way things are. And it wasn't just about objects, but also looking into interpersonal communication.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So even just he would observe the way people interacted and their posture, and he kind of just was really good about searching for all kinds of knowledge.
I really like the different perspective, actually. I think that's something I can connect to very easily.
Yeah, I think you would love to read it. And also had practical tips about how we can keep a notebook and just take time to observe things, and maybe pick a theme. And for example, you say, today I'm going to focus on sounds. And so, like right now I can hear the cicada. And so later on in my journal, I would write about the sound of the cicada that I heard tonight, maybe the passing of the traffic, the cars that I hear, and just as much detail as possible to really capture how that affects the atmosphere.
Awesome. So I might have to borrow that book from you.
Yeah. And so after that, maybe because of focusing on sounds, maybe I would write a haiku or a poem based on something like that. And so then it powers your creativity. You got to base it on what you observe, and once you observe things, then you have something to feed on to be more creative. So it's a really good book.
Yeah. So observation feeds creativity, right?
Definitely.
I need to summarize what you just said. Feeds creativity. All right.
And I'm not done yet, but when I'm done, I promise I'll let you borrow it.
All right. Or maybe I'll steal it from you. All right. Thank you.
All right.
So again, we're back into comparing the two videos, and I think that in the first video, Matt did a really good job at being absolutely not specific, not supporting his comments, being very, very, very vague. Whereas in the second one, he clearly explained his opinions, gave examples, and was absolutely wonderful at explaining his interest in Leonardo da Vinci's book. So yes, accurate comments are comments that you support, and this here is a word that we have seen a lot in the first semester, so hopefully you remember what we talked about in terms of support. As a quick reminder, I'd like to go over what we discussed. So yes, to support your comments, you need examples. For instance, Matthew explained about a notebook by saying that maybe he would want to focus on sounds and describing these different sounds, and later on why it's useful that inspiration from the sound might lead to a haiku, a poem, something that will generate a creative piece. So use examples, they're wonderful to explain your point. Numbers, we haven't discussed numbers with Matthew in the videos, but as I said in the first semester, we went over them quite extensively. And keep in mind the idea that numbers, especially big numbers, are not so easy to understand. So make sure you help the people who are listening to you to see how big a number is. Compare. Scales are wonderful, as we saw in the first semester. So numbers are powerful, but make them easy to understand. And yes, testimonies, using what others have done. Others could be experts, so people who are really good in that field, but also just everyday people give usually a good support to your statement. So yes, having accurate comments also mean that you express yourself clearly. In the first video, Matt used a lot of like, you know, and keep in mind that no, your listeners actually don't know. It is your task to explain to them what you mean. So, need to be clear. How can you do this? Well, you could plan your sentences. Planning your sentences means to take into account the fact that if it's a very long sentence or a lot of short sentences to just explain one thing, your listeners, your audience might not be able to follow you. So a good starting point would be think about what's your main point and just make one sentence out of it. Then keep going that way. Why do you think that way? One sentence. Give an example, one sentence. One sentence for each explanation related to your main point. And then make sure that these sentences are connected so that you can easily show their relationship. Let me give you an example. Let's say your main point is, I don't think discussions are helpful. easy to understand, you made one sentence. Then you go and explain, right? Why do you think that way? You have the because here. This is the explanation now. I think this way because, in my experience, nobody really listens to others. Again, I believe this is easy to understand because it was in one sentence, and the connection, the relationship between the two sentences is pretty clear. All right. Now we're moving on to the second skill of a good speaker, which is interactive. For the last time today, watch two videos that Matthew and I recorded, and we are discussing creativity. Again, remember you have guiding questions on your worksheet, so make sure that you've read them. And yes, the main theme here is, can you tell the difference?
So basically, I'll give this to you later when I'm done with it.
Oh, okay. All right, well, I'd love to show you my book. But it's actually an ebook, so I can't show it. But everything you said, I kept remembering Richard St. Jones' book, The 8 Keys to Success. And it was so interesting how it connected so well. Because this is Leonardo da Vinci, but he interviewed contemporary people. I mean, he did look into what people from the past did, but mainly, CEOs from nowadays, and inventors and researchers and writers and doctors as well. And so it was fascinating to see that as human beings we haven't changed that much, because the good habits from the past have, consciously or not consciously, been kept by creative people. So what do you think about that connection between past and present?
It's good.
In what sense?
It's not bad.
Okay, all right. So maybe I haven't explained to you well enough what I meant by that. What I was impressed is that, people tend to say, oh, we've made progress, or it's much better now than in the past. But with books like the one you've been reading, it shows that actually, not really. Maybe the technology is better, and that being said, with Leonardo da Vinci, with all the things he thought about, you kind of wonder. So the quest for always better for me kind of baffles me, because I think we already have wonderful things, but we might not be using them.
I agree.
In what sense?
That we don't necessarily use things even though we have them.
Okay. All right. So maybe you should read the book by Richard St. John. Maybe I'll be able to share better with you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. So anyway, yeah, I love the book so far, but I'm only this far into it. So when I'm done, I will pass it on to you.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I really had to hold my fire, because everything you were saying reminded me of the book I read a little before the summer, the Richard St. Jones. Yeah, you're right, the 8 Keys to Success that I've been telling you about. So that really, really just brought so many memories back. And one would be, it's not really a memory, but you were helping me remember the book. And what I realized was that we actually, as human beings, we haven't changed that much, right? Because, the TED Talk, and he does show how people nowadays, right, are creative, and how they are creative. And I think that what you explained to me about Leonardo da Vinci is very similar.
Yeah, I think people are creative, but maybe they don't always admit, or maybe they don't tap into their creativity enough. And so that's something that I'm guessing Richard St. John, I mean, I've only seen his TED Talk.
Yeah.
So in the book, I'm hoping that he would give practical tips on how to tap into the creativity, which is
What's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's the issue, right? What we've seen with the phones, people being so engrossed in things they're not observing, like what you said with Leonardo da Vinci, that what was my note, observation feeds creativity, right? If you're stuck in your phone, how much are you actually looking around and thinking about and just giving your brain a little bit of time to think?
Yeah, I think that maybe it's the allowing yourself to be focused and allowing yourself to not be not be too focused on something so that you miss the surroundings. Even if it's not technology. I mean, you could have a good book and be traveling through a country
Just
so
reading.
focused on the book that you miss all the beautiful scenery on the way. So I don't necessarily think that iPhones are the nemesis or
yes.
the only thing that changed. But I do think that people tend to get so absorbed in some things that they miss some beautiful observations or things they could be learning from.
All right. Well, hopefully our students will not find the video too long and we'll be
Yeah.
able to stay focused
And
on
she'll
it.
give me that other book. We'll do the book
Yes,
exchange.
we'll do that. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. So again, I think Matthew is really talented at being a bad speaker. In the first video, I did have a rather long explanation about what I think is happening with creativity, and then he had a chance to contribute, but was very shallow. Me too. When I agree, he didn't explain why he agreed, and also why is it bad, it's not good. These are not very helpful ways to bring about the conversation. In the second video, I believe he was much better at explaining his point, bringing new things in. I was thinking of, technology, and he introduced books, and he made a balance with focus. Yet it's good to be focused, but you can't be too focused because then you're missing what is happening around you. So hopefully this helps you see the difference in what a good speaker and a bad speaker do. So additional things to think about to make your talking time interactive is to consider that discussions aren't monologues, meaning only one person talking and all the others listening. A good speaker will keep the other participants engaged. A way to do this is, for instance, to refer to their comments. Oh yes, as you said, as Matt said, I agree that, and keep on going. Also, you could ask clarifying questions, meaning you agree with someone's point, but you want to have a little bit more details. So bring them back into the discussion and say, so you meant when you talked about books, can you explain a little bit more, for instance? So keeping your partners, the other participants, engaged. Another thing that I would recommend doing is staying on topic. So we have seen earlier that sometimes going off topics helps you connect things you hadn't thought about before. But do keep in mind that other participants might not know how to be part of the discussion. They might not know how to join the discussion if the topic changes too much. So if you want them to be with you, to be interactive, to be interacting with you, then keep in mind that you do have a topic, and staying on topic will help them be active as well. as I said, I think Matt was really good at showing this when he said, I agree, but didn't explain why he agreed. This is what you call being a rubber stamp, right? You say me too, but you don't give any other explanation. This is something that might be easy to do, but really it doesn't help move the discussion forward. The discussion could actually stop right after you say me too, because your partner or partners might expect you to help the conversation move forward by explaining why you think that way. So I would advise you to clearly explain why you agree, and it's great to agree, but just explain why you agree. So interactive thinking, also about having the conversation move forward. Another thing to keep in mind is be constructive and straightforward. Let's say that you don't agree with someone and just say, yeah, right. Again, here the discussion could stop or turn into an argument. For instance, Matt wouldn't be too happy if you reacted to his comment with just that. I might just stop talking. So depending on personalities, you might get some really different reactions. So, yeah, right, does express the fact you don't agree, but it's not constructive because you don't explain it. And it's not really straightforward. What is it that why do you react that way? Are you angry, mad? What is it, right? So these type of reactions will not help the discussion in being interactive or moving forward. So again, explain why you don't agree in a straightforward way. Last but not least, be respectful, right? We are all allowed to have our own opinion. Since we've used the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I will remind you that, yes, Article 19 gives us that right. So we have all the right to have our own opinion, and sometimes we cannot always agree, right? And I know in Japan there's that desire to keep harmony within a group, but what are you really learning if everybody agrees, especially if that's not what the person thinks, but decides, well, I will agree because I want to keep the group in harmony. So let's agree to disagree, right? This is something that's quite popular in English, to say, yes, we agree that sometimes we don't agree, and that's okay. We might learn from it, or we might just realize that sometimes in life we can't have the same opinion. Memorable, the last skill for the good speaker. So here we're trying to make your points or ideas memorable. Memorable means easy to remember, right? So the people who are listening to you should be able to remember what you say easily. And what can you do for that to happen? Well, we've discussed that already in some ways, meaning being clear, right? People to be able to remember what you said, first they need to understand you. So be clear when you explain your opinion. Nice tip to keep in mind is that if your opinion is not clear to yourself, it's very unlikely that it will be clear to others. So first, make sure that what you want to say is clear to yourself, and I believe that the way you will explain it to others then will be clear. So one way to make your points and ideas memorable is make them easy to follow. The next one is make them fresh. And here I'm actually using, again, Polk and Owen's way of saying it. That word somehow makes me smile and makes me engaged, actually. So fresh means, for instance, your point is different from what was in the video. So you're not just repeating what Matt or I said. You are coming up with your own way of saying it or your own perspective on saying it. Also, your point is different from what is commonly said around you. So it's not just what everybody talks about. And again, it is your own perspective on it or your own experience with it. Experience is a great teacher as well. Keep that in mind. And hopefully there is the reflection part of the worksheet that will help you do that, being fresh, or as to use expression that we have seen together in the first semester, things like think different, right? Or think outside the box. And here I did find another way to explain that, right? So think outside the box means the box is what everybody else think. You are here, you're opening it up and trying to see the world from a different perspective again.